Hello, this is Kelli Jennings, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on current research you might see out there with training nutrition. So you may have seen headlines or even claims on different low-calorie, low-carb products that are meant for training nutrition. They're usually hydration and electrolytes that claim that you will, in fact, burn more fat during your workout if you don't give yourself carbs while you're working out. So I kind of wanted to give you information behind this claim, and then at the end I'll give you my recommendations for training fuels depending on your goals for that training session and overall goals. So first of all, there is good research to show that during exercise, you will oxidize more fat during that specific time if you're not proactively giving yourself carbs. This makes sense. If you're not giving yourself fuel, then your body is going to use fuel from somewhere else. So a couple things to know about this research is, first, I haven't seen one study where it's done for a longer length of time than 60 minutes. So it makes me wonder, if you are an athlete who trains for longer than 60 minutes, if there is diminishing results at some point because you can no longer perform at a high enough level to continue to oxidize that fat, are you going to get diminished results? I would think so. If, let's say, you train for 2 hours rather than 60 minutes, during that second hour, are you going to feel poorly enough to not train at as high of a level as you would have with carbs? And that's going to decrease your fat burning. I would hypothesize that that is, in fact, true for most athletes anyway. That's one thing. Another thing is that performance is not evaluated. So are you going to perform worse or better? Kind of like what we said with the fat burn just a moment ago, but just overall, is that a factor in these studies? And it's not. The third thing is, these aren't long-term studies that show that you actually lose more fat because you have trained without carbs. They show that you oxidize more fat. So that means that during the research, during the workout session, you are, in fact, burning fat then. But what it doesn't answer is afterwards. Are you hungry or do you eat more? Are you actually meeting goals of fat loss overall? Or is it just that during that session you oxidize more? And that's what the research tells us, that during that session you oxidize more. That is not the same as losing fat overall, if that makes sense. So here are my recommendations. Often I work with athletes who want to both lose fat and perform and train well. These are two hard things to do. It sounds like they should be easy because you're doing all this training, so obviously you'll lose fat. But to perform well as an endurance athlete anyway, someone that is going to train much longer than an hour, it is hard to lose fat because you are hungry, because you do need fuel in order to perform well. So to combine these two things together, here are my recommendations. One, you do want to establish your goals. Is your main goal right now fat loss, or is it performance? That's going to drive some of this. Number two, how long is your session? If it is in fact 60 minutes or less, and one of your primary goals is to lose fat, then yes, I think you can go without carbs during it. You can time a meal or a snack beforehand to give you some fuel going into it. You can just use water or water and electrolytes, or even nothing, depending on how hot and humid it is, during it, and you'll be okay. And then you can time a snack or a meal that would be part of your normal day after it for recovery, if in fact you truly are looking for fat loss. That is a good way to go. You're not adding a whole bunch extra in that way. And then even kind of trial and error. If you find that you do need something more right afterwards for recovery, then go ahead and add something in if you'd like to, and then try to kind of keep your meals lighter during the rest of the day. So there is some trial and error, but for 60 minutes or less, you can go without. From 60 to 90 minutes, it is some gray area, and it depends on how well you are trained. If you're trained well for 4 hours, then 60 to 90 minutes, even at a high intensity, a lot of times you can go without fuel. And something to note here is research does also show that there's not very much benefit of carbs. So not only does it inhibit your fat oxidation during that time, but there's not much benefit of carbs during that first 60 minutes, whenever that's the entire length of your training. It adds more weight that you're carrying. It might add more stoppage time for you to drink or to eat, and you're not going to get benefit because it takes some time to digest and metabolize these carbs. So again, that's a little bit of trial and error. Some people know it. When I hit 45 minutes, if I haven't had something in my system, I will not perform well that last 15 minutes. That's fine. There's some trial and error. I'm just trying to let you know what the research shows. So those are the first two things, is One, if it's less than 60 minutes, you're fine with that. There's no benefit, and you will oxidize more fat without those carbs. 60 to 90 minutes depending. Also, if you're a runner and you're actually physically carrying something, then up to 90 minutes, sometimes it's nice to not have to carry things, as long as you find that your performance is okay. Now, beyond that mark, I believe that Training Fuel will in fact help you if you have any sort of goal at all to perform better, to train better, to get better at your sport. At that point, I believe from the beginning, you need to aim for around, at a minimum, 40 grams of carbs per hour, 16 to 24 ounces fluid. That can change for runners because, again, they're carrying that weight, not on their bike, but in their hands. 16 to 24 ounces of fluid per hour and 400 milligrams of sodium or more per hour. Depending on your performance goals, you can kind of go lower or higher. If you're going for a long time, 3 hours, 5 hours longer, you want to up those carbs. And we've talked about this before, but 60 to 90 grams per hour, and hit those marks every hour. The other thing then, overall fat loss. So when you look at the big picture, how hungry are you afterwards? How is the rest of your day looking? In my experience, when someone neglects or skimps on training nutrition, they have a goal of fat loss and better performance, and they skimp on training nutrition, and this includes the immediately before, during, and after, they are hungry all the time, and because they're not meeting their needs right afterwards. So not only are they frustrated because their performance is declining, but they're frustrated because they're not losing weight because they're so hungry afterwards that they kind of graze throughout the day or can't control how much they eat. Even if they do control it and they are losing weight, they're just unhappy because they're hungry. So here is how I work with athletes. We really hone in on the training nutrition based on their goals, based on duration of training, and meet needs there. So you are getting better at whatever you're doing. That is a great feeling, to feel awesome whenever you're running or riding and you're getting better. Then daily nutrition, the rest of the day, is when we use carbs only when we need to and not as much at other times. We kind of keep things light and very whole food, low processed foods, and that's where we lose fat. So I'm not so concerned that we are oxidizing the most amount of fat during training with the big picture goals in mind. So I hope that helps you kind of weed through some of that research and decide for yourself what the best course of action is. And just remember, if you are feeling frustrated with not performing better and you're not losing weight and you have both of those goals, maybe take a look at what you can do to give yourself the right fuel during training, and then taking some of the kind of junk foods or extra foods that you don't need out of daily nutrition. Thanks. Take care.